All right.
A ninja is a branch of the Japanese samurai, a very old organization. Its origins are hundreds of years old. Much of its history has been lost. Not many ninjas exist today, yet they all possess indomitable fighting skills as a part of ninjutsu. No matter what weapons you use, a ninja will never die.
Ice, right? Welcome to True History of the Ninja. I am Annie from Vitamin H, where we're going to talk about who the ninja really were and what they really did, as opposed to the current pop culture image of the ninja. And we start with a simple question: what is a ninja? And we think that's a fairly simple question to answer. The simplest definition is that ninja were mercenary spies. Hired by warlords in medieval Japan. They had many duties, including gathering information, reconnaissance, sowing dissent among an enemy's subjects. They would lie in wait and ambush their enemies, or simply sneak into their castles and murder them outright. And ninja earned a very good reputation for doing what they did. Let me see if I can turn them, I don't know what's up with this. Hello. Okay. That just sounds weird. Now, the concept of the spy has existed as long as enemy cultures and warfare have existed, but it was Prince Shotoku around the turn of the 7th century who first made note of the use of covert agents in Japan. He coined the phrase shinobi and gave said covert agents credit for his accession to the throne of Japan, like this guy. Otomono Sahito, often referred to in Japanese historical mythology as the first ninja. Interestingly, Sahito, the literal translation is slender man. That's right, the first ninja was Slender Man. And much like Slender Man, there's no proof whatsoever that Otomono Sahito ever actually existed, so there you go. Now, the history of the ninja is very closely tied to the history of the samurai. In the Heian period from the 8th to the 12th century, the emperor held absolute power over Japan. But the emperor was by no means the only member of the nobility. You had branch families and nobles and governors who nominally worked for the emperor, controlling parts of the capital, parts of Japan outside the capital in the name of the emperor. These nobles were expected to follow certain rules of decorum, as well as be competent military leaders. So you end up with military power and political power slowly moving outside of the capital and the rise of the strongly Buddhist-inspired Bushido code. Now, one important thing that happened during the Heian period was that in 906, the Tang dynasty collapsed in China, sending Tang refugees all over East Asia, many of them ending up in Japan. Now, if there's one thing we know about Japan, it's that they're not really big on foreigners. So the people in the cities wanted nothing to do with the ethnic Chinese, who wound up in rural areas, far in the mountains, far from civilizations, which was too bad for the ruling classes because these Chinese had a whole lot of knowledge, scientific, military, etc., that would end up remaining hidden to members of the ruling classes. This would come into play and be very, very important down the road. Now, in 1185, the provincial nobles had accumulated so much military power that they were able to take control of Japan away from the emperor, establishing the first shogunate and cementing the military class as the rulers of Japan. The Bushido Code at this point became gospel law. A single violation could result in your death sentence. However, many warlords outside the ruling family generally realize that if you play by the rules, you tend not to get anywhere. So you end up with a need for proxies, not formally attached to a clan, who could disregard Bushido and fight with dishonor. There are indeed historical references to ninja being used on sabotage and guerrilla missions at this time, and in 1467, when the shogunate collapsed, sending Japan into a century-long civil war, these unaffiliated proxies end up very, very much in demand. And this is where we see the rise of what would become the modern concept of the ninja. And the center of the ninja's world was here in two isolated mountain provinces called Koga and Iga. Now, modern culture has made great references to the legendary rivalry between the Koga and the Iga, but the truth is they weren't really that different. Yeah, they all had variations on skills and techniques that they kept secret from each other, but their main difference was in their attitude toward the feudal system which governed Japan. The Koga worked within the feudal system. They worked for a warlord. They swore fealty. They nominally owned land. The Iga, on the other hand, went so far as to declare independence from Japan, which was, of course, never recognized outside of Iga, but, sending soldiers into isolated mountains loaded with ninja to put down the rebellion didn't really seem so worth it. So the Iga nominally remained independent for close to 100 years. And of course, it would have been mutually suicidal for them to actually go to open war with each other. In fact, it wasn't uncommon for both Iga and Koga to be hired by the same warlord and need to work together on certain missions. Now, as the Sengoku period slowly drove to a close at the end of the 16th century, it was Oda Nobunaga who spelled the beginning of the end for the ninja. He wasn't really a big fan of the ninja to begin with. Not that he didn't understand the value of espionage, but more that the Iga and Koga held a virtual monopoly on the industry, and the ninja you hire today could very well end up working for your enemy tomorrow. So after Nobunaga's son failed fairly miserably to conquer Iga province in 5081, he decided he'd had enough. At this point, Nobunaga sent a force that outnumbered Iga's entire population 4-1, and their fighting population 10-1, into the mountains of Iga from 8 different directions, with the goal of complete eradication of the Iga clan. Nobunaga ordered his men, "You will bring me 10 Iga heads per day, or I will collect your own." You do not want to mess with the Oda Nobunaga. And even still, the ninja nearly managed to fight to a stalemate. They made their last stand here at Maruyama Castle, but after a long siege, they were at last forced to surrender, and that little stone memorial is now all that's left of Maruyama Castle. And after Tokugawa Ieyasu successfully brought the Sengoku period to a close in 1603, battles between warlords more or less stopped completely. And ninja found that their skills just weren't plain needed anymore. You've got 265 years of relative peace, not very kind to those who make their living in war. So the ninja faded away over time into myth and legend. And that's the end. No, I'm kidding. We do have some examples of historical ninja. Now, due to the nature of the ninja's job, the ones we know about tend to be the ones who screwed up. One being Togakure Daisuke, who may or may not have even existed. Now, here's the thing. We do know that there was a samurai called Nishina Daisuke who fell from grace in the 12th century. But everything else about him has been written by the Togakure school itself, and remains unverified by secondary sources. There's one theory that the Togakure school was founded by people who had been kicked out of Iga, and they co-opted the story of an ancient nobleman to make their school look older than Iga. Hino Kumawakamaru. His father had been executed by a rural noble, so Hino went to the dude's castle saying, "Help me, I'm without a father. Please take pity on me. I'll do anything. I'll even clean your feet." And so the dude takes pity on him, lets Hino into his castle, and that night, of course, Hino stabs the guy right through the chest. This is the kind of thing Japanese parents would actually tell their children to aspire to. Sugitani Zenjibo, who of course didn't look like that. Because of various video games, virtually all of these dudes that we're going to talk about tonight, even though they were very old Japanese men, have all been reimagined as an army of colorful bishonen, or occasionally 12-year-old girls. Sugitani Zenjibo managed to shoot Oda Nobunaga. It's said that, according to legend, he stayed in that tree for 3 days, shot Nobunaga from a distance, but then Nobunaga just got right back up. And the worst part is, Zenjibo's reputation was such that Nobunaga knew that there was only one man in all of Japan who could have made that shot. So he had Zenjibo captured, buried him up to his neck in sand, and crafted an ingenious little device made from sharpened bamboo that slowly cut Zenjibo's head off little by little over the course of an entire day. You do not want to mess with Oda Nobunaga. Mochizuki Chiyome, one of the few female ninja in the historical record, a member of the Koga clan. Now, she ran a group called the Ariki Miko. It is confirmed in the historical record that the warlord Takeda Shingen had 300 ninja girls at his disposal. But before you think that this is for any sort of progressive or representational reasons, no, this is medieval Japan. These girls were seen as completely and utterly disposable. They were sent on the most dangerous missions because nobody would miss them. And the average lifespan of an Ariki Miko was 19. Momochi Tanba, who spanked Nobunaga's son during the first invasion of Iga, and then led the Iga again during the Iga pacification. Here's what we know about him. It is confirmed in the historical record that he is among the ninja who took refuge during the last stand at Maruyama Castle. However, he is not listed among the ninja who surrendered, and his body was never found. So we don't know what happened to him. Naturally, there has been tons of speculation and fiction. My personal theory is that it was the TARDIS. Now, after Nobunaga died at the hands of one of his most trusted generals, his ally Ieyasu found himself in a bit of a pickle. But one of his men, Hattori Hanzo, a former Iga, led Ieyasu on a long retreat through heavily mountainous territory and was given credit for saving the future shogun's life. After Ieyasu became shogun of all Japan, Hattori was rewarded by being given ceremonial control over the entire eastern quarter of Edo, now Tokyo, while his men found a new purpose as the Oniwaban, Tokugawa's secret police. And even today, the eastern end of Tokyo is still referred to as Hanzomon, Hanzo's Gate. Here's a name that should sound familiar to fans of Lupin. The real Ishikawa Goemons was nowhere near as badass as his 13th generation descendant. He was a member of the Iga clan, and after the Iga were destroyed, he swore revenge against Oda Nobunaga and dedicated his life to revenging his people against Oda Nobunaga. But then someone else killed Nobunaga first. And so Goemon is like, okay, I guess now I'll revenge his successor, Hideyoshi. So he sneaks into Toyotomi Hideyoshi's castle, and he gets caught. There's a lot of speculation as to how he got caught. The most common theory you hear is that he tripped over a shoe. That he's in Hideyoshi's bedroom, and he's got his sword out, and suddenly he just trips over a shoe. But regardless, his name is listed and confirmed. He is listed in the diary of a Portuguese missionary by name as the criminal he just saw dumped into a pot of boiling oil. The Japanese love their bizarre executions. This is the country where when Christianity came over, like they missed the entire point completely, and they were just like, crucifixion, that's cool, we should do that. Now there are several Yagyu-jubeis, but the one that they're usually talking about when you hear the name Yagyu-jubei is this guy, who lived many years after the ninja, but is often still sort of lumped together with them. He worked for Tokugawa's grandson, and he's usually depicted as wearing an eye patch. But in this only known contemporary drawing of Yagyu-jubei, you can see both eyes are right there. Yasuke! They finally made an anime about this guy. I've been talking about this guy for years. He started off as a African slave brought to Japan by missionaries. He ended up in the court of Oda Nobunaga, who had never seen a black man before, ordered the slave stripped and scrubbed, thinking he'd been dyed with coal tar. But after the black didn't come off, Nobunaga was like, "This is the coolest thing I have ever seen in my life." He buys the slave on the spot, gives him a sword, a horse, armor, and a place to live, which under the laws of the time made him a samurai and a member of the nobility. The first non-Japanese to actually earn that title. He worked under Oda Nobunaga. He rode into battle alongside him. But here's the thing: after Nobunaga died, we don't know anything about what happened to him. So all of that stuff, like, that's the thing about that Yasuke show, is anything you see in that show that happened after Nobunaga died is complete fiction. Theory, speculation. We don't really know what happened. We also know that Yasuke wasn't Nobunaga's second during his seppuku. That was his 14-year-old boy toy, Moriranmaru, who did that. Where was I going with that? Like I said, we don't know what happened to him after Nobunaga died. The most likely scenario is that he spent the rest of his life in a Buddhist monastery. I personally think, once again, it was the TARDIS. Sawamura Jinzaburo, known for being the last official use of ninja on record. When Matthew Perry sailed into Tokyo Bay, pointed his guns at the harbor and said, "Hey, guess what? Japan isn't a closed country anymore." Sawamura Jinzaburo was sent to investigate, and he was so successful that Perry wrote in his logbook how surprised he was that the Japanese had sent no spies. I like to imagine he was writing that as Jinzaburo was standing right behind him. But let's talk about murder. This is a part of the panel people love to talk about the most because some of the things ninja used were absolutely ingenious. This was a time where if you got caught with a weapon, you were usually literally crucified. A lot of ninja weaponry falls into one of two categories, and it's either concealability or plausible deniability. Starting with the typical ninja uniform. We've all seen ninja, we know exactly how they dressed, right? So here's the thing. If you are a spy, you probably don't want to be wearing an outfit that essentially says, "Hello, I am a spy." Of course, ninja did everything they could to look like everyone else and not draw attention to themselves. There was one of their primary arts was called the 7 disguises, and they were trained to be able to assume any one of these 7 identities on the fly. The Komuso were a religious sect that believed in complete abolition of the self, so they would just put baskets on their heads and play the flute. Pretending to be a troupe of actors was a great way to sneak weapons into a place. No, trust me, those are just stage swords. Using these 7 disguises, a ninja could seamlessly blend into just about any street, city, or situation. Now, what's the one thing we don't see up here? Oh yeah, that.
What about bright orange jumpsuit?
The ninja, of course, didn't dress like that. That outfit comes from Japanese puppetry, when puppeteers would wear black shrouds so the audiences would see the puppets and not them. Well, during the Edo period, they came up with an innovation where there would be a scene going on, and one of the puppeteers would suddenly rip off his shroud, and underneath he was wearing something like this, and he'd stab the puppet or something, and that's how a ninja would appear out of thin air. Now, when ninja went on a mission at night, they would often wear blue, as the blue cloth of the time was considered significantly less visible at night, both because it was less likely to silhouette clearly, and because the natural patterns in the cloth worked as a sort of rudimentary camouflage. And this outfit often did include a mask, commonly worn by farmers as either a hood or similarly to a bandana, and it was what everyone else was wearing, so if you got caught, no whoop, you're just a peasant. And then for weaponry, first we have the ninja's katana. Wait a minute. First of all, that's not a katana. This is a katana. Those things Leonardo are holding are called ninjato. Katana most notably had a curved blade. It was much longer, much fancier, much more expensive, made of folded steel for extra strength. The ninjato were just a big knife. There's a lot shorter, a lot cheaper, a lot more utilitarian, and once again, there's no evidence that ninja ever used them. If you go to the Iga Ninja website, one of the interesting things, because they still have a museum there, one of the interesting things they say there is that ninjutsu is not a martial art. Because if you're a ninja, your job is stealth. And if you end up fighting, it means something has gone terribly wrong. And any ninja who was given a sword to swing around and act as infantry was essentially going to be the lowest ranking and least respected ninja they had. Now there's a lot of reasons ninja might not have used swords. One of them being that Japanese swords really sucked. Yeah, blasphemy, believe it or not. There's something that Japan doesn't have a lot of, and that is iron. And what little iron Japan does have is so loaded with carbon that it's referred to in the West as pig iron. That whole thing with folding the steel, no, that wasn't just to give the sword the strength of 7 swords. It was a method of trying to get some of that carbon out so it wouldn't shatter the second you quenched it. So more like, give your sword the strength of 1 sword, or give your sword the strength of 70% of his sword, because these swords were still, even well-made ones, were still really brittle. And even the first 20 rules of Japanese swordsmanship deal with how not to break your sword. What about the nunchaku? No. Here's the thing about the nunchaku is they're not weapons. They were never intended for use as weapons. They were invented in Okinawa as a way of training hand-eye coordination. The only reason we even know what nunchaku are is because once upon a time, a Hollywood director saw Bruce Lee playing with the set and thought it looked cool. Now, if you think about it, the nunchaku is a terrible weapon. Okay, first of all, it's incredibly difficult to use. How many of you have seen a YouTube video of someone owning themselves in the face with a pair of nunchucks? Second of all, it's only this long. If you can get this close to somebody, there's a lot more effective ways to kill that person. Third, the chain doesn't actually, it looks cooler, but it actually makes it strike less hard. Because physics something, the chain absorbs a lot of the impact and you'll actually get, it's actually more effective to just use a stick. That's this long. The Manriki is something similar, though, that the ninja did use. This improves over the nunchaku in several ways. First of all, it's much longer, so you can whack someone from further away. There was like a move you could do where you went, and then the chain would just strike out from your hand and hit someone in the face. Those weights on the end are a lot smaller, so a lot easier to conceal, easier to wield. And in a pinch could also be used to as a grappling hook or to tie somebody up. So that's 2 Ninja Turtles down. What about the sai? Yeah, you see where we're going with this. The sai has a small step over the nunchaku in that the sai is actually invented as a weapon, but not in Japan. It is based on a Southeast Asian weapon called the cha-bam. It is not a bladed weapon. It is wielded like a baton. You either hit someone with it or get him in the ribs. The prongs on the sides are meant to deflect blows from an enemy's weapon, so you would never hold them the way Raphael does, or else you would get your fingers cut off. Now in Japan, once again, they had a similar weapon called the jite, which improves over the sai because, once again, it's much longer. You can whack someone from further away. That little notch on the side is a lot narrower, so not only can you catch one of those aforementioned brittle Japanese swords, you can just snap them right in half. But the ninja didn't really use those either. The jite ended up becoming a symbol of the civilian police well within the Edo period who were hunting down ninja. So, those are all the things the ninja did not use. What's up? Oh yeah, it's essentially your ninja nightstick. So now we know all the things the ninja did not use. What are some of the things the ninja did use? Probably the most common weapon, in quotes, a ninja would use would be the kunai, which was a sharpened garden spade, literally a ninja shiv, that could be wielded as a dagger or thrown as a last resort. The manto, or garden shears, used similarly. The gotoku was a metal ring designed to set a hot tea kettle on, but modified to bind an enemy's feet, hands, or neck, and often sharpened on the edges to form blade. Hibashi, nominally tongs used for handling hot coals, could also be sharpened and wielded similarly to kunai. Seeing a pattern here? These are all improvised weaponry that could be easily hidden away or explained away. Makibishi, seed pods from a plant that grows in Japan called the water caltrop. And whichever way you drop them, they point straight up and hurt like hell to step on. Shuriken literally translates to a blade hidden in the hand, were some of the only actual weapons a ninja used, and that's only because they were so easy to conceal. These are not just your traditional kinds of throwing stars. You also had the ones that you would hide in your hand and then just sort of Assassin's Creed someone in the neck. Fukuya, a flute that could be used as a blowgun. Tekokagi, nominally used for removing weeds from rice fields, also used for removing faces. Kama, nominally sickles used for harvesting rice. These were all just common tools at the time. A farmer could have any of these in his wagon, and few officials would bat an eye. Now, once upon a time, someone had the bright idea of sticking a kama on the end of a manriki and making a weapon called the kusarigama, which was such an unusual and difficult to use weapon that it earned a reputation to where they said that a fully trained kusarigama master could never be defeated. Until Musashi Miyamoto did it. Now, Musashi Miyamoto is your typical, I'm going to walk the world trying to find a suitable person to fight. Once upon a time, he comes across a kusarigama master, and the guy is just, the guy takes his fighting stance and he's swinging his chain, he gets ready, and Musashi Miyamoto kind of steps back, looks at the guy, points his sword at him, and then just sort of chucks it. And the sword went right through the guy. It is not yet confirmed in the historical record whether Miyamoto then dropped the mic. Kakute, a type of shuriken worn as a ring. Those little spikes were poisoned, so if you caught someone arm in a hand-to-hand combat move, they were in a lot of trouble. Tekken, good luck Googling that. Literally translates to iron fist. Those are your ninja knuckle dusters. Kanzashi are weapons used by female ninja. This is a reinforced hairpin that can be plucked out of the hair and driven into a guy's eye, or driven into a guy's neck, or driven into a guy's junk. Given the way women were treated back then, it is very, very likely their use was not limited to ninja. Shikomi translates to specially prepared, and this refers to anything that looks like another thing, but is actually probably a knife. You had knives hidden in fans, you had knives hidden in walking sticks, made famous by Zatoichi. You had tobacco pipes. Oh, ninja loved tobacco pipes. There was so much you could do with a tobacco pipe. You could use it as a snorkel, you could reinforce it and bludgeon someone with it. You could hide a knife in there. There was one technique they used where they would take the bowl of the pipe and fill it with pepper. And they would sneak up to somebody and go, and mace them in the face with the pepper. All of these weapons, as cool as they are, would eventually become totally irrelevant. Next to what would become the ninja's most important weapon of all. Friendship, not kidding. Guns! Guns, guns, guns. Yes, ninja with guns. That sounds like cheating, but that's how it was. Guns broke all the rules of ninja weaponry. They were hard to conceal. They were not easy to use. They gave away your position. They were heavy. You couldn't explain that away if you got caught by saying, "No, that's my farming gun." And they were incredibly effective. Ninjas still used them. That just kind of goes to show you how much better guns are than swords. Guns are better than swords in every single way, anime notwithstanding. It was believed at the time, these were seen as a way of really cheaply raising an army, because it was believed at the time that it took an average of 3 years for someone to become proficient with a bow. But you could just get old illiterate Taro and his 6 sons out of the rice field, put matchlock rifles in their hands, and suddenly you got an infantry. Ninja were among the first to specialize in firearms, but guns showed up a bit late in the ninja's history, so we never really got to see everything the ninja could really do with them. Now, besides weapons, other things the ninja used, the Shinobi Rokugu, said to be the 6 items no ninja ever went on a mission without. A couple of them are very simple. The amagasa is just your hat, usually reinforced or used to hide shuriken. Kariginawa, a grappling hook, rope, very useful. The tenugui translates literally as towel, but it's really more like a really big bandana. Have you ever seen someone do kendo? Because when someone does kendo, they wrap that thing around their head before they put the helmet on. That thing they wrap around their head is a tenugui. The donohi is one of my favorite little things. The donohi is a hollowed out bamboo tube with a coil of wire of copper inside of it, and then crammed with cotton and hemp. And when you lit that, it would start smoldering, and it would stay smoldering for about 8 to 12 hours. And this was used as effectively your ninja Zippo. Portable fire is extremely, extremely useful. In its most simple use, it was a hand warmer, because it gets cold up in the mountains. But you could also use this thing to light your smoke bombs, light a campfire, light a signal, light your gun, because those guns back then, you needed to light them manually. Or you could light an enemy's castle on fire. Fire is very, very useful. The inro attached to your belt had a number of compartments in it, usually filled with leaves and powders that were used as medicines, but of course ninja often carried poison. And the yatate. Now, when you are a spy, sometimes you are going to need to take notes or draw maps, and ballpoints weren't really invented yet. So the yatate was a portable writing kit that contained a little pot of ink, but for the ninja, that ink was often poisoned and used as such, and sometimes would contain a little chalk pencil for quick quick writing. But then in later days, might contain one of those nasty little things called the Nagiti Teppo. The Nagiti Teppo is quite possibly the world's first handgun. It held one ball, one charge, and it was lit with fulminated mercury. If you've ever seen the episode of Breaking Bad where Walt blows up his office, that's done with fulminated mercury. Fulminated mercury is extremely unstable. So this thing, because it was so short, had no range, it had no accuracy, and about a 50-50 shot of blowing up in your hand. But when it worked, you could put a rather nice hole in a fairly well-armored samurai. Shikodo is a kunai with a serrated edge used for sawing. The Goshiki-mai system is a method of communication where you would take these colored rice grains and find a secret location and put it down like purple, green, green, yellow, red, blue, purple, and that meant something. The ink was also toxic, so animals wouldn't eat it. And then the gondo. This is one of my favorite, most ingenious little things. It is a bucket that has a gyroscope inside it that holds a candle. And no matter which way you turn it, the candle stays upright. So if you're doing a night mission, you've got your little lantern, suddenly you hear enemy soldiers, you go, put the light down on the ground, they're gone, you pull it up, the light's still going. And of course, ninja underwent extreme levels of training. Now it's said that ninja could do such supernatural things as walk on water, or breathe fire, or control people's minds. But here's the thing. This is an era when your slightest screw-up could result in your ordered death by seppuku. And Magic Ninja Done It ended up being an excuse accepted by a surprisingly high number of warlords. But of course, a ninja's true power was friendship. No, science! I've got that quote up, that Arthur C. Clarke quote up there because it's extremely true. This is where that hidden Chinese knowledge that had been in the mountains of Japan for hundreds of years at this point and remains secret to the Japanese ruling class comes into play. For example, the ninja were masters of explosives. There are 3 types of explosives the ninja used. The noroshi, which literally translates to wolf smoke because it was made from wolf poop. Someone found out that if you lit dried wolf poop on fire, it made a very, very thick smoke that went straight up, which was great for either fogging out a battlefield or signaling the ninja on that hill over there. I'd love to know who discovered that. My money's on a 13-year-old ninja boy. Torinoko literally means baby bird. These are your ninja flashbangs. Typically, these made a very, very loud noise, a very bright flash. Typical tactic was to set off 10 or so of these on the north side of an enemy's castle and then attack from the south side. Hodokohiya, the ninja were among the first to realize that it isn't necessarily the explosion that kills you, it's the shrapnel. So if you take a hollowed out iron ball and cram it with gunpowder and nails and chunks of metal and you lit that and lob it into a sufficiently crowded garrison, you can turn a whole lot of enemy soldiers into hamburger. Chinese herbology form the basis for most ninja medicine. Chameleon plant and mugwort are used if you need to poop or not poop, respectively. The ability to go a long period of time without needing to poop is still valued by modern militaries, as anyone who's eaten an MRE can tell you. Amur cork tree is your ninja trucker pills. This contained a stimulant that the ninja would consume if they needed to stay awake for a few days. Nandina, used in small doses, can cure an upset stomach or a sore throat, and in larger doses will kill you. And wolfsbane, a very, very potent poison. It does not take very much wolfsbane to kill an adult human. These were often used by ninja masquerading as doctors, who would hear that an enemy warlord has fallen ill and he will show up at the front door and says, "Hello, I am Dr. McNinja. May I examine the patient?" And then he'd go in and put wolfsbane in his tea, and I'm sorry, there was nothing I could do. He's with the Buddha now. Mizugumo were nominally used, strapped to feet and used to walk across the surface of water. But this proved to be too juicy of a rumor for Mythbusters not to give a try.
The pool waters are as still as glass, and all is quiet. It is time for Ninja Savage to stride forward and walk across its surface.
The first step seemed kind of promising. To me, it seems like it's all going to be a function of my ability to move my feet crazy fast, like a cartoon. Which might be possible.
Despite his increased momentum, the shoes still weren't able to support Adam's weight. But it was comical.
I believe that the moment I hit the water, I was sinking in the water. These may have slowed my descent, but that's really the best that can be said for them.
Well, it turns out that mitsugumus were never really intended for walking on water. They were more for like rice paddies or mud flats, and they probably worked okay.
Kind of like snowshoes.
Exactly. However, ninjas also were not at all above trying to encourage the belief in their supernatural powers.
Ah, right, the masters of misinformation. I've heard they would do things like place posts underneath the water as they were escaping a shogun castle to make it look like they were walking on water. They wanted people to fear their magical powers.
Exactly.
And of course, ninja training included a lifelong of study in countless different disciplines, not just the ones you think of, like fighting and killing and running and jumping, but things like the aforementioned science. You got to learn social studies, because if you're going to be infiltrating the government, you want to know how the government works. Weight control and hygiene. Ninja were fastidious bathers. It was because it was believed that if someone could smell you, they could find you. And they also ate a very, very low-calorie diet. It was believed that the ideal weight for a ninja was somewhere around 160 pounds, because sometimes you would need to do the thing where you have to support yourself in like the corner of the rafters, or you got to hide like on a tree branch, and you really, really don't want that tree branch to break out from under you. The Koga school had what was referred to as the 34 arts, and you had to show proficiency in all of these before you were given the rank of genin, or the lowest ninja rank. And there's some really interesting ones up there. Karumi Jutsu, I do want to point out, that is body lightening. It's making yourself lighter. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it's not going Palpatine on somebody. Tenmon, meteorology. You got to know if it's going to rain. Zanshin, the art of not freaking the heck out. But all good things must come to an end, and as the ninja faded away into myth and legend, they turned out to be way too juicy of a topic for fiction writers not to go into, and the very first popular fictional ninja was in the early 1800s, when an author by the name of Kanwate wrote a novel entitled The Tale of Jiraiya. Wait a minute. That's a little better. Here is the plot of The Tale of Jiraiya. Stop me if you've heard this one. Jiraiya, the Toad Ninja, and his sidekick, Tsunade, the Slug Princess, have to go on a mission to defeat Orochimaru, the Snake Master. That's where it came from. Naruto is about as based on these old legends as Dragon Ball Z is on Journey to the West. There were tons of Jiraiya books, because of course you could do that in the 1800s by many different authors, and he became extremely popular, and so did this guy, Sarutobi Sasuke, who is once again the reason why every ninja is named either Sarutobi or Sasuke. This shot right here is from an anime, one of the very first anime that came out in the US that was brought over here, dubbed into English. It was called Shonen Sarutobi Sasuke, brought to America under the title Magic Boy. Despite that, it's a surprisingly faithful adaptation. One of the few things they changed was that they turned Sasuke from a ninja into a samurai, mostly because in whatever. We didn't really know what a ninja was in the United States. The first appearance of ninja in American pop culture didn't happen until the 60s in a James Bond film. Roald Dahl, the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, who's one of the most interesting people in history if you read about him, wrote this script based on the ninja fad that was coming out in Japan at the time. And I'm going to show you a clip of this.
Hello. Bad news from outer space. Yes, I heard it. Now the Russians are accusing the Americans. Next time, it will be war. We'll have to get down to those volcanoes. I agree. We'll also need a company of first-rate men. Do you have any commandos here? I have much, much better. Ninjas. Top secret, Bonsan. This is my ninja training school. Ninjas. The art of concealment and surprise, Bonsan.
Am I the only one who thinks that looks like Matt, the guy who runs the con? But yeah, I will say that's at least probably more accurate of a ninja training school than, say, Konohagakure. Now, that's almost all the information we've got for you, but one thing we always get asked at the end of the panel is, are there still ninja? Do ninjas still exist today? And that is kind of a complicated no. No. Sorry to disappoint you, but there are no more ninja. The most likely candidate for the title of Last Ninja was this guy, Fujita Seiko, who worked for the government, was a member of the Koga clan, and when he died, he specifically said, "The Koga clan dies with me." That hasn't stopped some people, though. Hatsumi Masaaki, a very, I'm not sure what controversial is the word. On one hand, Hatsumi Masaaki is a very well-regarded martial artist who could easily beat me up. He's also done a lot of peer-reviewed research on ninja history, and in fact, a lot of the information from this panel was taken from his work. However, he also claims things like he knows how the ninja walked on water and breathed fire, but he just doesn't feel the need to teach anybody. Here we have our panel's token white guy. Stephen Hayes went to Japan in the 70s looking to train as a ninja. He trained under Hatsumi Masaaki, but after breaking with him in the 90s, founded his own school, Toshindo, Ninjutsu for the Western World, where he teaches you things like cyber espionage and how to scale office buildings. And finally, Kawakami Jin'ichi. He's the last member of the Iga clan. He runs the Iga Museum. If you get a chance, look at the website for the Iga Museum in Japan, because they have an English language version of the website, and there's just tons of information up there about what the ninja did, how they did it. The other reference I want to shout out is a book by a man named Matt Alt, called Ninja Attack. So between that website and Ninja Attack, those are a lot of the information from this panel came from those two sources. But Kawakami Jin'ichi has also said that once he goes, there will not be another master of the Iga clan, saying that in the age of civil wars or during the Edo period, the ninja's abilities to spy and kill or mix medicine may have been useful, but now we have guns, the internet, and much better medicines, so the art of ninjutsu has no place in the modern age. But that doesn't stop it from being extremely cool to talk about. I am Annie, I'm from Vitamin H. We do take tips at the end of this panel, so if you like what we do and you want us to be able to keep doing it, please give generously, but even if you don't have anything you can give, we still love you. Tell every con you go to hire Vitamin H, and we'll see you again sometime in the future. Thank you.